In today's episode, we're going to be covering, is DevOps an IT position or an engineering position? And where does it fall in your organization? You're going to hear our thoughts, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let's get into it. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, those intros got to be punchy.
Yes.
So, IT or engineering, that is the question.
Okay. So the short answer is my usual answer.
DevOps is not a role,
Well,
position.
oh, that's my second usual answer. No, it depends on the organization and how they've defined what is IT and what is engineering. DevOps is something that should spread between the development organization, which typically you would consider engineering,
Engineering, yeah.
and IT, which is the operations. So it should span them. But my other go-to answer is you shouldn't have a DevOps group. Creating a DevOps group, creating an artificial silo, which you're not supposed to be having silos in DevOps. You're supposed to be knocking them down or at least limiting them, not creating yet another silo.
So I've been in both camps. I worked in one large organization where Team Foundation Server, precursor to ADO, that was an IT-centric tool. It was paid for by IT overhead budgets, right?
Okay.
So the funding for the patching and the upkeep and all that came out of the overhead budget. And so all the business units contributed to the funding and keeping the lights on and running of the tools, which made it hard because it's a cost center, right? The necessary evil, and companies don't like spending money, right? And I've also been in an organization where, like you said, right, the DevOps tools are such a core centerpiece of the developer experience that to be removed from it doesn't make sense. But now you need a different set of skills that software engineers normally aren't trained when it comes to maintaining and upkeep and deploying and running these DevOps tools.
So I think another nuance is which DevOps tools. So if you're talking about things that are more on the programming side, like version control tools or program management tools, you're probably leaning more towards the engineering department. If you're talking about standing up instances of sites and things like Kubernetes and your cloud environments and things like that, then yeah, I agree that's still more towards the IT organization. But go ahead. Yeah.
So a lot of these, so let's AWS. That's usually an IT side of the house.
It is.
But a lot of these tools work or complement, on AWS. So do you separate it out from that organization?
So I like having a tool organization that's not necessarily a DevOps group, but it's more of a tool administration team.
But that still doesn't answer the question. Like, who pays for that team?
Yeah. So it has to be shared between the IT and engineering organization.
Yeah, but the colors of money, you should know better than me. Colors of money are very, very different.
Yeah. So I prefer not to have multiple teams. Because those are just different silos. And if you have to, you want to be reducing the silos, if not getting rid of them altogether. But yes, engineering usually has its own budget and IT has its own budget. And you can say, oh, clearly GitLab, for example, because I'm wearing a hat today for some reason, is, clearly an engineering tool.
But here's what
is not necessarily an engineering tool.
But here's what I've seen. I've seen politics and bureaucracy get in the way of this way more than it should. And so what I've seen is a team of developers that clearly need a DevOps solution or solutions, right? And they go and they go down the proper method. Because I think my belief is that from an organizational perspective, I would want my developer tools to be with the rest of the tools, which are normally in IT,
Mhm.
from cybersecurity perspective, from budgeting perspective, from
Well,
a skill set perspective.
yeah, that brings up a number of different topics on this.
Well,
One
hold up.
is okay. Go ahead.
Okay, hold up. But so what I've seen because of that rule, but
Mhm.
then there's no like who's paying for it and all the bureaucracy, the developers end up just like incubating a little something something on the side.
Yeah, well,
Like
that's
just enough
called
to get their
shadow
work.
IT.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just enough to get their work, their projects, their deliverables, right? And they get to do it. They own the administrative rights. That's usually a big one.
Mhm.
But then it gets bigger, right? The little flame gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon you got a whole wildfire. And then IT comes in and assumes responsibility and then like pulls it back, removes all the admins, changes the budgets, and then we're back to this whole shared BU model of a business unit model of the
Mhm.
payment. But the problem that I've seen is it's too late at that point to try to govern the tool because it's already grown so many legs.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's too dependent on what it's grown into that the central group can't change it too much. I see that cycle happening all the time, and and as soon as as soon as it finishes with one tool, it starts with another tool.
I know the cycle is never ending. As long as there's companies in the world to make tools.
Yeah, but yeah, that is how shadow IT shows up, and how important is it to your organization to limit the amount of shadow IT. You'll never completely squash shadow IT in organizations
But
because
but com- but that's not a good thing though, right? Like as a company, you don't want shadow IT.
as a company you don't, but you also want your projects to get done on time. And if there's so much bureaucracy to let's pick on your favorite company, Atlassian. Um, if we're using Jira and
For the
Jira has
record, they're slowly becoming my least favorite company.
oh no, they're
They
not.
are too.
You still love them, but so but mainly so say Jira, Jira came up through shadow IT in most organizations, and then it became the dominant tool, and just like you described, some business unit took it over and basically dictated how it should be used for everybody else in the organization. If there's now so much bureaucracy wrapped around creating a project or eventually a space in Jira, um, is are the teams that have a deadline that need to get something out the door going to go do something else and create yet another little shadow
No,
IT
yeah.
cycle?
Well,
And
because
the
we're
answer is
seeing this.
yes. And do you really want to completely squash that? If I'm getting paid by the IT organization that controls the tool, I absolutely want to squash that. If I'm the product owner and I want my product to get out the door no matter what, and the bureaucracy is just getting in the way and slowing things down, I'm going to allow the shadow IT. I'm going to
Why do
look.
you think that bureaucracy slows things down though? What do you think people are afraid of?
What are they afraid of?
Like
Well,
why
I think
does the bureaucracy
bureaucracy by
exist?
definition slows things down. Um,
But I'm assuming you slow things down because you've been bit in the past.
mhm.
Right? You made some decision that might have been not there carefully thought out, or you might have not have checked all the T's across the I's, and something came and bit you hard.
Yeah,
And so
I
to
don't know if I
avoid
want to
that,
be on the argument of the side of a central uh, IT
really, because
organization is bad
I
or good.
think governance is very, very important when it comes to IT tools.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. But if it gets to the point where that governance is so tight that you can't get anything done, then you need to get stuff done, and so that's where shadow IT comes in. So you know, people complain about governance in lots of things in life, and there's a point to most of it, and usually it's all with the best intentions. So like, for example, one of our earlier episodes we were talking about car governance, and
And not
like,
an electric car, right? Because we're not
no,
allowed to talk
let's
about
not talk
we're not
about your
allowed to
favorite
talk
electric car
about.
company. But if you want to go get your car inspected, or you need to get a new tag for your car in California. You have a lot more hoops to go through than I do in Colorado. Um, very often, I just get something in the mail saying I owe this much money, no test is required, and then I get a sticker for another 2 years. Um, I'm pretty sure that's unheard of in California or where I used to live in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
I
in
used to have to have,
SoCal, if you have an older car in Southern California, like 96, I believe, and before,
Mhm.
they put probes in every hole of the car.
Looking for rust, right?
No, just looking for emissions.
Oh,
the
emissions.
tailpipe gets it.
Uh,
They put something in the gas cask in the engine bay. They like unhook the oil cap.
mhm.
They stick something in there. They put like a squeegee looking thing in the tailpipe. They
Mm.
put something in the gas pipe. Like, every possible like hole is clogged somehow.
Well, I know as a teenager in Massachusetts, I had a number of cars that wouldn't pass inspection because of rust, and so they went to the junkyard.
We don't
Um,
have rust problems in Southern
Yeah, I know.
California, Sean.
California doesn't have that. The New England, very big problem. But there was a number of cars that would have been classics today and very much worthy of restoring that went to the junkyard back in the early 80s because they had some
Rust.
rust on them. In fact, two of the cars I'm restoring at the moment would they wouldn't exist today if they were back on the East Coast somewhere because they just have too much. But I have no problem that as long as I pay the money in Colorado, I can put them on the road. No one's going to check if the steering is okay or if
but again,
frame's
but this
rotted.
still bringing it back to the relevancy to why we have these rules and bureaucracy, right?
Mhm.
Some mistake was made at some point that cost something, and so you make a rule to avoid that mistake again.
Mhm. Yeah. And people overdo it and they try to put rules around every little corner case and to the point that the tool is no longer usable and everyone hates the tool and not the regulations or the practices put around the tool. And I can see. So release team, DevOps tool specialists. We provide professional services and software reselling around the leading software DevOps tools like Atlassian, GitLab, GitHub, JFrog, and others. To talk with us about DevOps, here's our contact information. Please call 866-887-0489 or via email at info@releaseteam.com. Around the tool. And I can see this happening with a lot of different tools. A very classic one, and here we go. I'm going to mention ClearCase. ClearCase was a very well thought out tool, but it had too many points of customization. And so many people customized the heck out of it to cover themselves for all these little mistakes that happened in the past or problems that ClearCase quickly became a very hated tool, and everyone used it as a bad example of a software development tool where it did not deserve that. And when a tool like Git came out, which wasn't very customizable at all, and it didn't do a quarter of what ClearCase did, it quickly became the tool of choice, and rightfully so. There's other reasons ClearCase died.
Yeah.
But the main one was because everyone customized the hell out of it, and you could go from one department to another, even in the same company, and they were using the tool differently.
But that's so dangerous, though. That's why I love governance, and that's why I like standardization, because as an organization, at the end of the day, you all have to work together to deliver a single product. Well, I guess it depends on the size of your company.
Yeah,
But
you could be
most
producing multiple products that have very little in common, and product A
no,
may
but
need a metric that product B doesn't need, and
no,
so
but
how do you
like
standardize that?
when I worked at another one of my major companies that I worked at in the defense world, they all shared a common platform.
Mhm.
So as a software engineer, I can change from any plane,
Mhm.
and the same core components were the same. They were altered, and there
Mhm.
was layers
Yeah,
on
and
top
that's
of
a
it.
great example where you do want all those teams working the same way.
Right. But if every team had a different process or a different set of tools, or they use Jira differently, or they use Git differently, or they have different branching strategies, the whole thing would be anarchy.
It'd be chaos. Yeah. Now,
And so you don't, there's got to be a
if that
balance. Like you got to
company
have
had
some.
a plane division and a tank division, is it that important that the tank division have the same processes as the airplane division?
I think to a certain extent, it should have still a
Should be
common
similar.
core. There should be a common core, because you don't want your engineers or your knowledge workers to reinvent the wheel every time, because that's just not efficient.
Agreed.
Right. So there should be some commonality, which is again why I'm a huge fan of.
However, towards the end of a project, when new projects are starting up, it's worthwhile looking to see what else is out on the market. What's in,
But what about if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
I like that a lot. But if I've been using the same tool for 20 years and I'm starting a new phase of a different project, shouldn't I look to see what I can take advantage of that's out on the out in the
I guess you
wild?
could, but that is a significant investment.
It could be, but if it's at the start of a new phase of a brand new project,
No, but it's a significant investment with
easy
learning. But it's a learning curve, though, right? Like
could be.
if you're switching over to AWS for the first time, it was the new frontier. Nobody had been on AWS at one point, right? Especially when everybody was so used to the way app development was done back then. But where were we at? I thought I was with you somewhere where, like, remember when you used to pass the floppies around? Was I with you? I feel
we've talked about that on this podcast before.
But I felt I was physically with you. And somebody was trying to do something. I'm like, remember when you just skip somebody the floppy drive? Go, here you go. But there's a learning curve, and I think with every new tool adoption, right? Like I'll give you a great example. When I worked, again, same big company, we jumped over to do you remember VMware Horizon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when that entered the scene, that was like the coolest thing ever.
That at some of my clients.
Yeah. But that was like the coolest thing ever, because for the first time we can like spool up virtual machines on demand and like create these development environments that could be identical and could be built up and tore down, and we could do whatever we needed.
Now usually companies that are still using that, they've consolidated down to 2 or 3 engineers that are allowed to do that. So everyone should be able to, but they won't let you. There'll be 2 or 3 infrastructure engineers that control Horizon.
But still, I think we're still back to the original question that we started this episode. Should something like Horizon be an IT-centric tool that is governed at the corporate level, or is this siloed?
I think we're going to follow this pattern. It's going to depend on the tool. So I would say
it doesn't make sense.
Horizon is an IT tool versus a development tool.
But are not DevOps tools IT tools? Where do you draw the line between what
exactly? Where do you draw the line?
Like Microsoft Teams is clearly an IT tool. Cisco AnyConnect is an IT tool.
Yeah.
Salesforce, maybe not.
I would say Salesforce is an IT tool.
You think so?
Mainly because so
why?
So the way I'm painting it is, if the end users have the technical clout to be able to maintain and administrate the tool, then it should fall into their group. That really only works for engineering.
But that's still a very dangerous place to be. I don't expect
any of my salespeople to be able to administrate sales.
Okay, well, you got to draw a line. You still got to you still have to have some technical know-how, but it's very dangerous for team A to go and deploy Horizon, and then team B wake up in the middle of the night and go, I have a great idea. I just heard about this cool new product, Horizon.
Yeah.
And
that is a terrible scenario. And I've seen that happen, where there is a central group for the development tools, and a new development group spins things up, and they're like, hey, we're the next generation of products.
Cool story, bro. We've been doing that for 10 years already.
Exactly. Yeah. And they pick the same tools that you already have. And sometimes they pick the same tools knowing that the central IT group already has that tool out, but they don't want to follow the policies of the past. They want to innovate and go faster. So if I strongly believe if it's not broke, don't fix it. But
But I'm
if
also
you
hearing
if you
that
stay if you stay in the past, then you're not going to be able to compete in the future. You have to adapt. Tools don't
cautiously,
live forever.
but you gotta cautiously adapt though, because I, as a software engineer, like if I'm hiring a software engineer, I would rather they spend time coding than configuring TeamCity.
Oh, 100%. Hire me to do that. You focus on coding.
So do you
I
pitch
couldn't agree
yourself?
with that statement
But
more.
do you pitch yourself then as an IT provider, or do you pitch yourself as an engineer enabler?
I guess if I had to put myself in a bucket, it would be the engineer enabler.
And see, the reason I'll give you a little anecdote why I'm so concerned about this and or bitter. I used to work at the Boeing company, and I was in IT. I have an engineering degree, but I landed in IT, and I've always felt that being in IT meant I couldn't do it as an engineer. Right? I didn't have the technical. I didn't fully develop my technical chops to be an engineer, so I fell into IT because I feel like IT is just an easier version of an engineer, right?
I think I started in IT and then I got pushed in development. So I started out as a system administrator, and some of these development tools came in, and no one in IT wanted to maintain them. And I asked for volunteers. Everybody else on my team took a step backwards, and I was stuck out in front. And then I kind of got stuck maintaining these. And then at one point, I was just so far away from the rest of the IT team that we formed my own group around me, and I hired a number of
Yeah.
individuals. Um,
Well, so again, so the reason I'm so bitter, right, is given that career trajectory, I used to own Team Foundation server for the entire Boeing company. So I was like the guy who was responsible for making sure patches and lights kept stayed on, right? And one day I switched over to an engineering organization. I wanted to finally become a software engineer, and I got an opportunity to become a software engineer. And I remember on the phone with HR, they they sent me down a level in the hierarchies of
oh,
pay raises and stuff.
oh, that's DoD world and all that. They're
But
so
but
up
there's
on
a
their
but
ranks
there's a
and their
statement they made
codes.
that will forever. There's two statements in this very small period of time that are forever engraved in my mind. I remember being on the phone with HR and HR telling me, "You should be so lucky," were the exact words. You should be so lucky we're letting you keep your salary now that you're an engineer because you're moving up in the world. Right.
Okay.
And then, but I got demoted. I got a demotion, but they let me keep my salary.
Mm.
And again, I should have been so lucky. But then I remember distinctively walking in the very first day that I got this engineering job that I had been dreaming about for like 5 years of my career. And I walk into my manager, and my manager tells the entire team, "Here's Alex. We are so lucky he came to our organization because he was bringing all his IT skills to help us with our DevOps tools." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like I just had the biggest like demotion of my life coming this way, and you
Well,
only hired me for my IT skills."
yeah. So if the pay doesn't change, is it really a demotion?
I think so.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on what the ladder looks like in the other scale. Um, if you have to climb up 4 or 5 rungs on that ladder before you start seeing pay increases again, yeah, I would say that could be seen as a demotion.
Yeah.
Um,
The best part, though, the best advice I'll tell you folks is learn a skill like, managing these DevOps tools, then jump to another company because they will pay you handsomely. Because that's what happened to me.
yes, I have been uh, part of that stepping stone on both sides. So
I had
that's
a,
not the worst advice. I think a slightly better advice that I would give before that is find the most unsexy tool that nobody wants to maintain and learn that. and you will be in demand. Um, and I've repeated that multiple times over my career. Um, Now you just don't want to pick a crap tool. You want to pick a tool that is worthy of your investment, but one that you don't see all these people flocking towards. So, like I would
But
say,
Jira would not be a good one right now.
Jira was a great one 20 years ago. It is not a good one now. I would not be recommending new engineers become Jira gurus. There's the market's flooded, so you basically want to look for a market that's not already flooded. That has a tool that your average software engineer is not that interested in learning and maintaining, and build a career that way.
Either that,
Now,
or maybe learn one of the newer tools, like all the the JFrog stuff that just came out. Like,
mhm, yeah, definitely.
because
Well,
there's a learning curve to learning a new tool.
yeah. Now, that advice may need to be tweaked or used more frequently now that we're in the world of AI, and how much of that it matters now, when I can talk to AI or ask AI, how do I solve this problem, and it basically spits out something that's 80 to 90% what my experience would have told me, to someone that doesn't have any experience. Now we're still in the era of you need experience to understand if AI is giving you the right stuff. You might be able to fumble your way through it, and you're slightly better than not asking AI. But without true experience, can you really trust what AI is telling you? Now, if it's something simple and you're just doing some minor troubleshooting, it's not that bad. But if you're potentially causing outages on a global scale, well, then that's not good.
And that's why I think, again, I'm gonna argue, in case it wasn't clear for this episode, that your DevOps tools should be in the IT organization, because I think in IT you're more groomed and expect outages and cybersecurity risks, and you live that world more. And I don't think you appreciate a misconfiguration as much when you're an engineer.
I,
And I
I,
think
I
when you're
would
in IT, you care more about misconfigurations.
Yeah, I would agree with that mostly. I would say that if the tools are hosted and owned by the IT organization, but managed and administrated by the engineering organization, it makes more sense.
But that's still a dangerous place to be, because I've been in that situation where engineering had admin rights to my IT tool,
Mhm.
and all I ever had to do was go in and clean up after their messes when they screwed things up
Well,
royally.
so it really depends on the makeup of your IT team, and does
Well, a
your
competent
IT
person like myself.
if you were part of the IT team, I would agree with that. I see more and more IT teams that don't care about the applications. They just know that they built a server, it runs on that server or cluster or virtual machine or whatever. Um, and they really don't care about the day-to-day usage. And so if you're asking them to customize a workflow, add custom fields, you're going to get thrown in a queue, and it might happen in 3 months or 6 months. Um, but more often than not, they take a few power users in the engineering side, give them admin rights, and let them manage it.
Right.
But there's a middle ground there. You don't want to give a million people admin rights to all your tools, but if you have an IT organization that just wants to keep the lights on, you don't want them maintaining your tools. You
Yeah.
want them maintaining the infrastructure the tools depend on, but you want the tools to be administrated by a admin group that reports to the engineering team.
And I think
Uh,
that's a great transition to our next episode, where we're going to talk about who should manage your IT, your DevOps tools internally to the company or externally, like
ooh,
a third party company like a Infosys, a Deloitte, an LTI, something of that
yeah,
nature.
and a
So
lot of what we just talked about is really dependent on if these tools are SaaS or on prem,
yeah.
because that changes things up a lot too.
So make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a like, because we're gonna come back and talk about that. And one last thing, Sean, I asked Jippity, rule of thumb. and I feel like Jippity is listening to us.
Uh-oh.
If DevOps is about speed and developer productivity, it should be in engineering. If it's
Mhm.
about stability and governance, it should be in IT.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's what Jippity says. And with that, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Later, everyone.